Word Bristol, if you fancy texting into the show this morning. Now, this is an interesting one. Stones or kilograms, miles or kilometres, inches or centimetres. Here in the UK, we currently use a mix of both imperial and metric measurements. Well, a consultation started by the government back in June into whether or not to bring back the imperial system came to an end yesterday. The outcome of that will come in due course. If the law were changed, it would mean produce could be sold exclusively in imperial in a post-Brexit break from EU rules. One of those leading the charge is the North East Somerset MP, Jacob Rees-Mogg. But what do people think of the idea? Good one? Waste of time? Well, to chew the cud over this one, joining me is Peter Burke, who's from the UK Metric Association, and Erica Pito, who's co-founder of Flojo Fabrics on Gloucester Road in Bristol. Morning to you both.
Hello, good morning. Hi.
Morning. Erica, let's start with you as somebody who it would affect what you do day to day. You deal in fabrics. So what do your customers regularly use?
The majority of our customers use a metric system. Obviously we have older customers and certain things where people sort of are still a bit stuck in the imperial measurements, but the majority of people use metric. And for us as a salesperson, we always work in metric. We convert everything over to.
And of course, many patterns. If people are into dressmaking, you'll know a lot of patterns come from America, don't they? So they still use the imperial system, don't they? So I suppose you're already sort of changing between the two all the time, aren't you? In that sense.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we have some patterns that come from America and Canada. We tend to stock a lot of like the more modern UK and European independent patterns, which are in metric. And for us, as soon as we see the American pattern, we convert it straight over. It's a rough conversion. We are doing it sort of a bit ad hoc, but it makes it so much easier for us.
What do you think of the notion then of bringing back imperial to be more dominant?
I think it's, steeped in nostalgia. It's got no practical use. It's not, and especially when we teach sewing and we teach sort of measuring, it's so much easier to work in the decimal system. So I don't think it's got any practical notions. I just think it's a bit of nostalgia, to be honest.
Yeah. Peter, I'm 100% certain I know what you think of this idea.
You said it, Ali. Yes, I mean, I think what you just heard is an example of the common sense of the metric system, and it is a worldwide system. You'd often hear it said that this is one of the so-called opportunities of Brexit, and this is where your dear friend Jacob Rees-Mogg and other members of that particular movement are extremely vocal, but they're a minority, a tiny minority. The world uses metric. This business about the Americans using imperial it's misleading because they don't. They use a system they call customer units, and they don't use stones, for example, at all. The measures of volume are different. The American pint is different, and if you order a beer in America, you'll be disappointed because it's a lot less than ours. And there are all these things that, you've mentioned the hybrid system, and it's been hybrid for a long time. Since the 1860s, the UK government has been talking about metrication. It was actually 1965 they made a final decision to go wholly metric, and they got stuck. And the rest of the Commonwealth have gone metric now. The only countries in the world that don't use metric on the shelves are the Americans and countries like Liberia and Myanmar. So it is a worldwide standard, and everybody understands that it's easy to work with. It's decimal like decimal coinage. And can you imagine going back to pounds, shillings and pence?
No.
Listeners may remember, you obviously don't, but a lot of listeners remember
I
pounds,
do.
shillings and pence.
Yes, I do, just about. But
I remember them, but I wouldn't go back. And you can't have a dual system. You couldn't have some traders working in pounds, shillings and pence and some people working in pounds and pence. It'd be crazy.
Well, for generations who know nothing about that, they wouldn't even recognise what you're talking about, would they? But if there is an appetite for it, plenty of people have had a chance to work on the consultation, then possibly it's something that would be considered. But presumably there would always be this duality as we already have, but the emphasis would be you'd see in bigger print the imperial, but always in brackets you'd have the metric.
Let me give you two examples. Milk is sold on the doorsteps in pints. That's one of the exemptions to metrication. But milk elsewhere is sold in litres. Even a pint bottle is defined in terms of how many litres it contains or how many millilitres. And if you go running, you will always run in meters. All sports, essentially all athletics, use.
If I go into a pub, though, I have a pint, don't I?
Yeah, exactly. That's the other exemption. So beer and cider are an exemption, and of course miles on the roads. That's an important exemption at the moment. But what I'm saying to you is this, that it's a fallacy about choice. If you say, give people the choice to work in metric or imperial, that's a choice for traders. It isn't a choice for consumers. If you as a consumer want to buy in metric, you have a right to do so. And therefore, it is vital that people can see the amount in a carton or a can or whatever it is in millilitres as well as in imperial. Yeah. And it is entirely up to traders to use both if they want to. They have the right to do that now. That isn't a change. All the government is saying is they want to take away the right to see the metric amount on the can or to see it less conspicuously. So why on earth would you want to do that? Who's going to benefit from that? Nobody. It's just toxic nostalgia.
Final word with you, Erica. Mm-hmm. If it came in, do you think you could cope?
Well, we would be able to cope, but I think in loads of ways it just is another thing that would cause problems to small businesses, to traders, maybe even added expense, another aspect of, another sort of fallout from Brexit that doesn't benefit the small traders, doesn't benefit, I don't think benefits the customers either, but it could, increase, costs and expense to us in display costs and everything like that. So I think it won't be beneficial to anybody.
Okay. Good to talk to you both. Thank you very much indeed for putting it out there and discussing the idea. That's Erica, who has her own fabric shop, and also Peter, who is from the UK Metric Association. But I'd love to know, what do you think about the idea of going back to that system? 08000 855 949 is the number. Text 81333. Start your message with the word Bristol. Should we go backwards? Should we stay where we are? Should we just forget about the imperial and just have metric? It's all being debated at the moment. Text 81333. Start your message with the word Bristol.